How Apple became a $3 trillion company. Today, Apple is one of the most valuable companies in the world, worth more than $3 trillion. But in the 1990s, the company was just weeks away from bankruptcy. This global tech giant didn't start in a massive headquarters. It started in a small suburban garage. Many early investors feared the company wouldn't survive the meltdown. So how did Apple go from near bankruptcy to become the most valuable company on earth? This is the story of how Apple built a $3 trillion empire. The garage beginning. The story begins in 1976. Two young innovators, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, started building computers in a garage in California. At the time, computers were enormous machines used only by businesses and universities. But Wozniak had built something revolutionary, a personal computer that ordinary people could use. They called it the Apple I. The machine was simple, but it worked, and local computer hobbyists began buying it. Soon after, Apple released the Apple II, which became one of the first mass-produced personal computers. Sales exploded. By the early 1980s, Apple had become one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the world. The Macintosh Revolution. In 1984, Apple launched a product that would change the computer industry forever: the Macintosh. Unlike earlier computers, the Macintosh had something revolutionary: a graphical user interface. Instead of typing commands, users could interact with icons and a mouse. This made computers far easier to use. Apple even launched the product with one of the most famous advertisements in history: the 1984 Super Bowl commercial. For a moment, it seemed like Apple would dominate the computer industry forever. But things didn't go according to plan. Steve Jobs leaves Apple. Despite the innovation, Apple began facing serious internal problems. Leadership conflicts grew inside the company. In 1985, something shocking happened. Apple's own board forced Steve Jobs out of the company he helped create. Without Jobs, Apple began to lose direction. Meanwhile, another tech giant was rising: Microsoft. By the mid-1990s, Apple was struggling to compete with companies like Microsoft. Their Windows operating system began dominating the personal computer market. Apple's market share dropped rapidly. Apple nears collapse. By the mid-1990s, Apple was in serious trouble. The company released too many confusing products. Profits declined. Customers started choosing cheaper Windows computers. By 1997, Apple was losing billions and was only weeks away from bankruptcy. The once dominant tech company looked like it might disappear. But then something unexpected happened. Apple made a decision that would change everything. They brought back the man who started it all. The return of Steve Jobs. In 1997, Steve Jobs returned to Apple, and his first move was drastic. He cut most of Apple's product lines and focused on simplicity. Instead of dozens of confusing products, Apple would focus on just a few great ones. Then in 1998, Apple launched the iMac. The colorful, all-in-one computer quickly became a massive success. But Jobs had an even bigger vision. He believed Apple should not just build computers. It should build an entire ecosystem of technology. The products that changed everything. In 2001, Apple introduced the iPod, a device that allowed people to carry up to 1,000 songs in their pocket. The iPod became a cultural phenomenon. But Apple's biggest breakthrough came in 2007, the launch of the iPhone. The iPhone combined a phone, a music player, and an internet device into one revolutionary product. Smartphones existed before the iPhone, but none worked this well. The device completely transformed the technology industry. Soon, millions of people around the world were using Apple products every day. The Apple ecosystem. Apple's true genius wasn't just hardware, it was the ecosystem. Apple created products that work perfectly together. iPhone, a Mac, iPad, Apple Watch, AirPods. When people buy one Apple product, they often buy several more. This ecosystem created extreme customer loyalty. As a result, Apple generates hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue every year. The $3 trillion milestone. In 2022, Apple achieved a historic milestone. It became the first company in history to reach a market value of $3 trillion. From a garage startup to the most valuable company in the world, Apple's journey shows how innovation, design, and vision can transform an entire industry. And even today, Apple continues shaping the future of technology. If you enjoyed this documentary, drop a comment, like, share, and subscribe to Corporate Cashiers. See you in the next episode.